Welcome to our program Hyper Annotations 2.0, organized by the New Center for Research and Practice Parallel Academia Group. And I'm here with Pedro, Neves, Marques, the artist represented by the Portuguese Pavilion. Pedro, maybe you could describe your work, tell what inspired you, your approach, how do you feel about it?
It all started with a poem that I wrote. I write poetry, and from that poem this story came up, which is a story of 5 characters flying in a spaceship to a distant planet, and they are supposedly vampires. It's left open what that means. So it's a project that has film and poetry, and it has really an emotional core about a lot of kind of gender issues, transgender issues, but also just life and looking at our own lives from a distance, in a way, from space.
Thank you. I read in the flyer this term, science out of fiction. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit more.
Science fiction, I'm a really big fan, always was, and it's in many of my works in different ways, or a speculative fiction in a way. But I've also been working quite in the last couple of years in bringing together personal stories, biographical, mine or people around me, and kind of working through science fictional lenses, and that's why science out of fiction, in a way, bringing out of fiction and biography together with like speculative imaginaries and seeing what that can do, let's say. And this work here in the Pavilion definitely has that very much up front.
Maybe you can tell us more about particular ideas that interest you within the science fiction?
I like science fiction very much, but I also have a particular, I'm gonna have to...
We can repeat.
Yeah, I'll do it again. No, I like science fiction quite a lot, and I always have, but I also have a particular kind of let's say, theoretical approach to it. I really see it as a sort of anthropology. I think it's really, it really tells us a lot about our expectations about the future or about technology, bodies, and also who imagines those technologies and those futures and those imaginaries. So I have this kind of also very very kind of critical approach to what it is and what it does. And I've written about this as well in terms of critical texts and writings, and some of my works, like this one, are also kind of also bring that up. And in this case, there is definitely a search for a world that's different, and for whom is that world. So I hope people understand that approach to science fiction.
How do you find the general topic of the Biennale surrealism, especially related to your work, to vastness of space, the figure of the vampire, and maybe you could tell us what do you think about bringing surrealism back, and how it can tell more about reality that we have to confront today.
I was very pleasantly surprised seeing the Arsenale and the Central Pavilion, and how much it actually is so in tune to also what I'm doing here at the Portuguese Pavilion. The questions of the body, the questions of gender, of sexuality, of difference, and trying to search for other narratives and fantasy, and just in this case, outer space, but also an outer space that is also an inner space, right? It's also about ourselves. This is, I think, the project here has fantastical approach, but then when you see it, it's very personal, it's very intimate space. And I think I also found that very much in the exhibition that Cecilia Alemani curated. And I think we right now, in general, do need imagination. We do need kind of to open up spaces and get out of kind of predetermined narratives. And I'm happy to have found that also in the main exhibition in the Biennale.
I would like to move a little bit from surrealism to your perspective on art world. You recently received the Portuguese Art Center special prize, and how do you find art after the pandemic? And maybe from the artist's perspective, you could tell us more like how institutions from the big important institutions like national galleries to private galleries could help to revitalize art world after the pandemic.
I feel it will take some time, some years, for us to start understanding the consequences of the pandemic. I think maybe we are trying to already rush and try and understand. I think the consequences will be long. I think it really revealed, I see around me in my life, a crisis of mental health, for example, and something that's subtly is also in the films and the works here in the Pavilion. I think we will need to really pay attention to this, to health and how we feel ourselves and reconnect. Institutionally, I think institutions shouldn't rush to try and find answers. I think the answers will come with time and through artist practices, And I think we artists, we need time also to digest what we lived through and what happened and what is happening. My work here at the exhibition, for example, I wasn't expecting, it wasn't part of the process, but when I sat down and saw what I had filmed, for example, I realized very clearly there was so much of the pandemic, of isolation in our bodies in the work, but it wasn't conscious. So I think it will take time, and I think we need institutions to be with us.
Pedro, how do you find importance of organizing events such as the Biennale in Venice? Maybe I can repeat, okay? Because, how do you find the importance of organizing big events, big art events like the Biennale?
I think it's a model that needs to be rethought a bit. I think we have learned a lot from Biennales, for example. I think we now need maybe to think more carefully about what they actually do locally. At the same time, I think the Venice Biennale, strangely enough, with the national representations, which might feel anachronic. At the same time, they do open a space to see 100 shows, for example, of artists from across the world, and that's something that's in the end actually quite democratic, and the opportunity to see people I wouldn't otherwise see their works. So maybe there are some interesting answers coming from the Venice Biennale about the biennial model. Let's see, I don't know.
Thank you very much.
No, for sure. Thank you.